Thanks. As Michael said, my name's Spencer Brydon. I work for a company called Allay. Today, I'm going to let you in on a little tradition we have in our company called Photoshop Friday before we get started. Essentially, what we do is every Friday morning, get up a little bit early, take heads of people from our team and put them into different pop culture references. Whether it's making our CEO the front man for Nickelback or making one of our engineers into a Game of Thrones battle scene. So since today's a Friday, what I was thinking was we should probably do a Hint Summit edition of Photoshop Friday. There's also an Avengers movie coming out today, so what I basically did was recast some of the famous Avengers with speakers from the Hint Summit. So to get started, we've got Michael Lubin as Iron Man or Tony Stark. We've got the CEO, Zach Holdsworth, as Thor. My wife had the same reaction to that one. And then last but not least, we've got David Contorno as the mild-mannered Bruce Banner. But be careful. If you talk to him too much about the bukas, he might turn into the Hulk. So what Michael said I was here to talk about was basically the impact that DPC can have on both the overall plan costs and specifically stop-loss costs for self-funded employer. I'll send it to you later. So to give you a quick overview of what we do, just so you have that basis, I mean, at Allay, we are an online underwriting and modeling platform for self-funded health plans. So we help advisors be more efficient, more effective at building out self-funded plans that revolve specifically around innovative strategies like DPC. For people that aren't too familiar with how a self-funded plan is structured, there's a few different elements that go into it. Typically, there's 3 buckets of a self-funded plan cost. You've got your admin fees, your claims, and your stop-loss costs. Admin includes everything from your TPA, your provider access, your advisor fees. Claims are what you're actually paying. You know, on a self-funded plan, the employer is responsible for paying the claims that come in. And then stop-loss is how the employer caps their risk. There's really 2 types of stop-loss. There's specific stop-loss and aggregate stop-loss. There's a whole bunch of variables that can go into it, but those are the main 2 things that employers are going to look at purchasing. Specific stop-loss says that we're gonna cap our risk on a per member basis. So if any individual member's claims go above a certain threshold, we want the stop-loss carrier to come in and pay for it. And on an aggregate basis, you're looking at if the group as a whole exceeds a certain threshold, we want to cap our risk there so that the stop-loss carrier will come in and pick up the tab. So what we did was we said, okay, how can we take DPC to our underwriters and say, they're doing something really cool here, we need to be able to get credit for it up front. You know, traditionally, a lot of programs, what people say is that, or stop-loss carriers will say is, you'll see the results in year 2. You'll see the results if it actually works. But we said we want to be a little bit more proactive about that. So we've been working with our underwriting partners and our stop-loss carriers to say, here's the case for DPC and why we think that we should be getting discounts for it up front. First, you're removing financial barriers for employees, giving them access to care. People are no longer avoiding care because they can't afford their copay or their coinsurance. We're giving them better access to physicians, no longer 15-minute office visits, actually having time to spend with your physician, time to go through that, improved ongoing communication, as well as the downstream navigation that we've heard a little bit about today, which is not just letting the member go and make their decisions on their own, but helping provide them and get them to the right course of treatment, to the right providers, the right facilities at the right cost. And the results that we've got from working with the stop-loss partners have been a little bit mixed, to be honest. They basically said, okay, and this ranges from different partners, we'll give you anywhere from a 0 to a 10% discount. What they mean on that is on the aggregate factors, not to get too technical on it, but basically means they're going to reduce your expected or your maximum claims for a group by 0 to 10% for the inclusion of it. So what does that really mean for a plan, and what's the difference between 0 and 10%? How do they decide what that is? So we put together a little template, basically working with our partners on what information they're always going to need to know whether or not they're going to discount for it, and what's some of the stuff that we can do that's really going to boost that discount and get you the top end. First is covered services. They want to know what's in the contract. What are you actually covering? I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. Fee setup. Who's paying for it? Is the employer paying 100% of the DPC cost? If so, you're going to get better participation. Does the employee have to be the one that's paying for part of the cost? That's not going to be as advantageous. Proximity to members. I mean, the most important thing or the best thing that you can do is be on site. They're going to give you much more consideration if you're on site and make it easy for employees to access care. Can't always be on site. Be close to members. Whether it's close to their home, close to their work, if they have to drive more than 15, 20 minutes, you're going to see engagement fall off. at least from the underwriter's perspective and from what we've seen in the industry. And plan design. This is kind of what they talked about in David Contorno's speech earlier in their session here. How do you design the plan design to steer people into DPC? Is the employee going to have the same benefits if they use DPC if they use others, or are they going to have much better benefits by going through the DPC provider? And that's really a big piece of it. And then some of the things that really boost it are that downstream support and navigation, being able to show what you're doing to help employees beyond just the service that you offer. Have you gone out and contracted with other local facilities? Do you have discounts on imaging, on other services that they might need? And do you have a track record and ability to deliver? And for people that are just starting out, this is why this is a bonus. It's not always required, but can you show results? When they come up here and show that they've saved in clients 60%, that's important to them. They want to see a track record of results. So what does this all really mean? So what I did is I pulled some data from a platform just to give you a concrete example of how costs are typically broken down in a self-funded plan. It's a little dangerous using averages when you're talking about stop loss because there's so many variables that go into it. But this is kind of the average breakdown for a 100-person group. So we have 1.15 million in expected cost. On the admin side, you're looking at about 132,000 of that, 658,000 going to claims, and 364,000 in stop loss premiums. Again, that can vary, but that's a good starting point. So what happens when we add DPC into that group? We use some averages that we found basically on the admin side. We're going to put it at $80 per member per month. Some of you charge less, some charge more. This was a good starting point. That equates to about $172,000 increase a year in their admin costs. So what does a 5% discount for that same group look on their stop loss factors? That's only about $33,000 in discount that they're giving them. So there's a couple different ways that you can look at this. One is, well, that's awesome they're giving us a discount. There's a lot of services out there that stop loss carriers won't discount for. That's good. The second thing you can look at and say is that, well, that's not very good. We're supposed to be decreasing costs, and they're telling us this is going to cost them almost an extra $140,000 a year. The better way to look at it is say that $140,000 is easy. This is just an underwriter's discount and what their estimating claims are. You have the ability to actually deliver what the end of year claims are going to look like by all the services that you do. And that goes back to building the case. Well, we built a case with them to get discounts. You've got to build a case with the employer that you're going to save them more than this. And it's not that hard to do. So that can be anything from reducing surgeries, reducing unnecessary opioid prescriptions that lead to more problems, or preventing one catastrophic claim. That's all you need to do. And we heard some great examples of it earlier. You find one diabetic that wasn't getting their treatment because of the cost of care and the financial barriers that you removed, and they come in. Maybe you find out they've also developed hypertension and they're going down the path of chronic kidney failure, but you prevent that. That's not $140,000. That's potentially $1 million claim that you just saved. And that's the story that we need to tell. And how do we get better at telling that story? And this is great for what we saw before with this last session. It lines up. It's exactly the same message, which is we need the data. Collect the data. And that goes for both the physicians and the providers as well as the brokers and the employers. Collect the data. Look at the book of business of what you have with DPC, what you have without DPC. See how they compare. Look at a client's claims pre-DPC and post-DPC. Don't worry about sample size. Just get as much data as we can to begin with. And then start collaborating with your peers, whether you're a part of an advisor network, you're a part of Health Rosetta or Mastermind, any of these programs. Work with your fellow advisors to collect and share that data and pool it till we get a sample size that people will look at and really notice. Case studies. We heard some great case studies just a few minutes ago. Those are huge. Those are what really tell the story. As what someone said before, to paraphrase, when you have something that everyone wants, selling's unnecessary. Those type of case studies is what's going to get everybody to want DPC and realize the value of it. And most importantly, really share your results. Don't keep them to yourself. Post them on LinkedIn. Write blog posts. Do whatever you can to get them published and get it out there so that ultimately employers and everyone in the industry knows that this is going to be a good way to prevent costs. And if there's anything I can do to help, my contact information is up there. Feel free to reach out anytime, even if you just want a copy of one of the guys as Thor, Hulk, or Iron Man. But thank you, and thanks to him for putting this on.